The courtroom buzzed with the usual impatience of a minor case morning until the bailiff called a name. Leonard Briggs. A faint murmur rippled across the room, but no one moved until a tall, well-kept black man in a wrinkled gray suit rose from the back row. No lawyer trailed him, no briefcase in hand, no rush in his walk, just calm, purposeful steps as he made his way to the front. Two uniformed officers seated in the back leaned toward each other. "That him," one whispered. "Gotta be. Look at him. Probably one of those fake legal gurus. Bet he's about to say the law doesn't apply to him." They chuckled under their breath, loud enough to turn a few heads. But Leonard didn't react. His expression was unreadable, like he'd rehearsed this moment before. The judge, a graying man with a radio-ready voice, adjusted his glasses and peered down at the case file. "Mr. Briggs, you're being charged with failure to comply during a traffic stop. That correct?" Leonard's voice was calm. "That's what the report says. And you have no legal representation today?" "I don't need one." A few quiet snickers echoed from the back of the courtroom. The judge glanced toward the source of the noise but let it go. "This is a minor infraction," he said. "We'll keep it brief. Mr. Briggs, anything you'd like to say before we proceed?" Leonard stepped forward slowly and reached into his coat. One of the officers in the back stiffened, hand brushing his holster. Leonard paused, then pulled out a thin, laminated badge and laid it gently on the judge's bench. "I'm Leonard D. Briggs," he said, "Director of Internal Affairs, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The courtroom froze. The judge blinked, mouth slightly open, as he stared at the badge. The officer who'd started to rise dropped back into his seat, stunned. His partner looked like he'd seen a ghost. "You're with the FBI?" the judge asked cautiously. "Internal Affairs," Leonard replied. "I oversee misconduct investigations across the Southeast, including departments where body cams mysteriously stop working during traffic stops." A pin could have dropped and echoed. The judge leaned back in his chair, voice suddenly unsteady. "Would you mind stepping into my chambers, Mr. Briggs?" Leonard shook his head. "I prefer everything stay on the record. Full transparency." One of the officers stood. "We didn't know who he was," he mumbled. Leonard turned his head, not threateningly, just observing. "You didn't ask." Hours earlier, just past 10:30 p.m., Leonard had pulled off a quiet Mississippi highway in a rented silver Camry. No markings, no federal plates. Just another tired traveler heading to a cheap motel after a long day. That was exactly how he liked it. Leonard had been visiting small-town police departments flagged for suspicious reports, missing footage, odd use of force patterns, inconsistent records. He traveled under the radar, made observations quietly. But that night, flashing red and blue lights appeared in his mirror. He sighed, pulled over, and watched two white officers, mid-30s, one bald, approach without hesitation. The bald one knocked hard on the driver's window. "License and registration." Leonard rolled the window halfway. "What's the reason for the stop?" "You didn't use your blinker," the officer replied, sharper now. "License. Registration." Leonard calmly responded. "Pretty sure I did." The second officer appeared at the passenger side. "You got something to hide?" "No," Leonard said. "I just want to know if this is a traffic stop or an interrogation." That didn't go over well. "You giving me attitude?" the bald officer barked. "Step out of the vehicle." Leonard stayed calm. "I haven't refused anything. I asked a question." "Step out." Leonard handed over his license. No FBI markings, just a clean Alabama ID. "Where you headed?" the cop asked. "Can't say," Leonard replied. "You can't or you won't. Federal protocol." That phrase lit a fuse. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" the officer snapped. "You think you're above the law?" Leonard didn't answer. The passenger door was yanked open. "Get out of the car." "This stop is no longer lawful," Leonard said evenly. They didn't care. He was pulled from the car, arms twisted behind his back, slammed to the ground. He didn't resist, didn't yell, just lay there, gravel pressing into his cheek, listening, recording every word. A small audio device hidden in his coat had started the moment those lights flashed. At the station, they wrote a hasty report. said he was verbally aggressive. No mention of their threats, no camera footage, no call allowed, just a cold holding cell and the smug grin of a cop who thought he'd won. But Leonard wasn't just a man with a badge. He was the investigation. Back in the courtroom, tension thickened like fog. "You're saying you're FBI?" the judge asked again. "I'm not saying," Leonard replied. "I am. Call Director Travis McCall's office or the Office of Inspector General in D.C. A veteran court clerk named Darlene stood up. "Your Honor, shall I verify?" "Please," the judge said too quickly. Leonard stepped back, eyes never leaving the bench. The officers whispered nervously, "This can't be real." 5 minutes later, Darlene returned. "Confirmed, FBI, Internal Affairs, 27 years. Rank checks out." Silence again, but this time from shame. Leonard spoke at last. "I wasn't here to cause a scene. I wasn't even planning to file a complaint. I was traveling on assignment. I followed the law. I stayed calm. I was still assaulted, detained, denied rights." His voice didn't rise, but it filled the room. "I request that the charges be dropped immediately and both officers placed on administrative leave, pending federal inquiry." The prosecutor opened his mouth. The judge raised a hand. "Granted." The officers were stunned. "You're suspending us? Just like that?" the bald one protested. Leonard faced them directly. "This isn't about me. It's about everyone you've treated like they didn't matter. People who didn't have a badge to protect them. I did. And I still ended up in the dirt." One officer stepped forward. "We didn't know who you were." Leonard raised a hand. "That's the problem." But it wasn't over. The real investigation had only just begun, because the badge may have silenced the courtroom, but the truth was still buried beneath lies, reports, and mysteriously missing footage. Leonard walked out into the morning heat without celebration, just the weight of knowing that once again the system had cracked. And this time, he was the one writing the report. Curtis walked into the station trying to look casual, but it didn't fool anyone. The shift in his posture, the forced ease in his gait, the way he avoided Tamara's eyes, it was obvious something was off. He knocked on the sheriff's office door. "You got a minute?" he asked. Sheriff Ricky Halburn didn't even look up. "Make it short." Curtis stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "Look, I didn't know who he was. If I had, I would have handled things differently." Ricky leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "I don't care if he was a janitor or a ghost, Curtis. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't resist. He gave you every chance to handle it clean, and you still treated him like a street thug." Curtis hesitated. He was vague, started talking about federal protocols. "We've seen fake IDs before, guys pretending to be federal agents." "And when he handed you a real license," Ricky pressed, "you just tossed it aside?" Curtis didn't answer. Ricky sat forward, voice low and tight. "Do you even understand what happens if the DOJ sends a full review team down here?" Curtis stared at the floor. "I messed up." At that moment, Tamara stepped in. She'd heard enough. "You didn't just mess up," she said, arms folded. "You put this entire department under a microscope, and maybe that's exactly where we should be." Curtis looked at her, stunned. "You're serious?" "I'm tired of the cover-ups," she said. "Tired of reading reports that don't match the body cam footage. Tired of people leaving here worse than when they came in." Ricky didn't say a word. He just sat there, jaw clenched, phone in hand, fully aware of how many secrets were about to surface. But if they thought the worst was behind them, they hadn't seen what Leonard Briggs was looking at on his laptop. Alone in his motel room, Leonard sat hunched at the desk, fingers moving quickly over the keys. His expression was focused, detached. He wasn't working from anger. Emotion clouded judgment. He was building a timeline. He submitted a formal request through the department's portal, specific timestamps, detailed wording. Less than an hour later, the reply came. "We regret to inform you that the body cam footage from the incident on May 14th is unavailable due to a technical malfunction. We are reviewing maintenance logs to determine the cause." Leonard leaned back and exhaled quietly through his nose. Not frustration, confirmation. Another missing video. Another red flag. He called the DOJ's regional tech contact and asked for a historical report on the department's body cam software. 10 minutes later, the results arrived. 6 outages in the past 10 months, the analyst said. Every single one during stops involving Black or Latino drivers. 0 outages during training exercises or routine stops involving white motorists. Leonard didn't react, just typed. Back at the station, pressure was mounting. Officer Dell sat frozen at his desk, staring at his screen. Tamara was at her own computer, combing through years of old complaints. She opened one from December. Young black man, stopped 3 blocks from home, said he was roughed up, filed a complaint, body cam malfunction. Again and again. They really thought no one would notice, and she muttered. In the back office, Brian, the department's quiet IT tech, received a discreet message through the internal system. Check the logs from May 14th. Briggs case. Who accessed the files before they disappeared? Brian hesitated. He didn't like getting involved in things that weren't strictly technical, but curiosity overruled discomfort. He ran the search. 2 access logs, both traced to Officer Dell. One just hours after the arrest, another the next morning. Logs deleted, review flags bypassed. Brian stared at the screen, then printed the report, placed it in an envelope, and walked it straight to Tamara's desk. She opened it. Her jaw clenched. "Thanks," she said quietly. Brian didn't answer. He turned and left without a word. The next morning, Leonard walked into the station wearing the same suit, a small manila folder in his hand. The front desk officer nearly jumped. "Agent Briggs, we weren't expecting—" "I'm not here to cause trouble," Leonard said. "I'm here to confirm patterns." He walked straight to the sheriff's office and entered without waiting. "I assume you got our email," Ricky said wearily. Leonard placed the folder on the desk. "I also got the access logs." Ricky didn't touch it. "Someone deleted the camera data manually," Leonard said. "Before arraignment. Want to guess who?" "We're looking into it." "No," Leonard replied firmly. "You're not." "I am." He turned to leave, then paused. "I suggest you have Officer Dell's badge and weapon ready by end of day. Internal Affairs will be arriving this week." Ricky didn't argue. He just looked down. But Leonard knew. Dell wouldn't be the only one with dirty hands. And this wasn't just about one night anymore. It was about everything they'd buried. By Wednesday morning, 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled into the back lot of the Jefferson County Police Department. No sirens, no flash, just quiet authority. Leonard stepped out first, joined by 2 agents from Washington, Grace Mendoza, a sharp-eyed compliance strategist, and Nathan Cole, a digital forensic specialist who rarely spoke but saw everything. Inside, the tone had changed. Officers who once swaggered now avoided eye contact. Ricky Halburn looked like he hadn't slept in days. Grace took over the records room, disciplinary files, traffic stops, personnel reviews. Nathan went straight to the server room, where Brian handed over credentials without hesitation. Leonard sat with Tamara in a side office. She had a dozen reports open on her screen. "These all read the same," she said. "Pulled over, aggressive behavior, body cams off, reports vague, no follow-up." Leonard nodded. "This isn't about one bad call. It's about culture, about what gets normalized." She turned her screen. "Here, May last year, man stopped after work, said he was ordered out of the car for no reason. No arrest, no ticket. Report says he was non-compliant." Leonard skimmed it. Same language, every time. Down the hall, Grace entered Ricky's office. "I need your department's documentation on use of force, de-escalation, and body cam policy." Ricky gestured to a cabinet. "Take what you need." Grace flipped through the folders. "This is 4 years out of date." Ricky didn't respond. Meanwhile, Nathan worked fast. Files cloned, logs restored, deleted videos reconstructed from backup servers officers didn't know existed. He found 2 flagged videos. One had audio from a patrol mic. Grainy, but enough. Leonard listened. "Where you headed?" "Can't say." "You can't or you won't. Federal protocol." "You think you're above the law?" A scuffle. Gravel. A grunt. Then silence. Leonard stood up. He walked into Ricky's office. "We're issuing a compliance hold," he said. Ricky leaned forward. "You're shutting us down?" Field operations are suspended. Dispatch stays open for emergencies only. As of today, your department is under federal supervision. You know what this will do to us. Leonard didn't blink. You know what not doing it already did? He left without another word. Tamara met him at the stairwell. I pulled complaint logs, she said. Most were denied without a single interview. Same reviewer. Leonard raised an eyebrow. Who? She handed him the list. Curtis Dell's name appeared again, and again, and again. Leonard folded the page and slipped it into his coat pocket. Good work. Tamara looked surprised. You think this will actually change anything? Leonard paused at the door. That depends. Do you? Change wouldn't come from paperwork alone. It would depend on what the town did when the truth finally came to light. And by Friday, they couldn't ignore it anymore. Local news stations picked up the story, initially just speculation. Then the leaked video clips surfaced, grainy but clear. One phrase echoed in living rooms and barbershops and school pickup lines. Federal protocol. At a cafe downtown, a group of old-timers argued over coffee. I'm telling you, they stopped that man for no reason. Well, maybe he didn't show ID. He did. And even if he hadn't, that's not how you treat someone. Across town, a group of parents met at the community center. Tired parents. Parents who were exhausted from teaching their kids how to survive traffic stops. That night, a town hall was called. Packed house. Some angry, some scared, all looking for answers. Mayor Harold Lanning took the mic, voice shaking. We're aware of the investigation. We're cooperating. We will make changes. From the back, a woman stood. Are you going to reopen the old cases? She asked. Her name was Felicia Green. Her son had filed a complaint 2 years ago. Nothing had happened. We're looking into that, the mayor said. No, she replied. Don't look. Acts scattered applause broke into a wave. The town was finally awake, and the reckoning was just beginning. Leonard stood near the back wall, arms crossed, his presence quiet but steady. He hadn't come to speak. He came to listen. Halfway through the town meeting, Tamara slipped in beside him. Didn't think this many people would show up, she whispered. Leonard kept his eyes on the speaker. They always do, once they stop being afraid of the silence. One by one, voices filled the room. A teenager described being stopped on his walk home from football practice. A single mother spoke about being pulled over, twice in 1 week, and questioned like she'd stolen her own car. An elderly man, quiet until now, shared a story from 1989. Pulled over, cuffed, let go without explanation. He never told anyone, because no one ever asked, and stories like his never made the news. But tonight, the room listened. Then something no one expected. Sheriff Ricky stepped forward and took the mic. The room fell into stillness. He looked older somehow, less like a man in uniform, more like someone standing bare in front of his own reflection. I've been in law enforcement for 31 years, he began, and I'd be lying if I said I haven't failed some of you. He glanced at Leonard, then looked back at the crowd. We didn't know who Mr. Briggs was, but that's not the real issue. The truth is, we haven't cared who any of you were. That's on me. A few murmurs, a few nods. We're reopening the dismissed complaints, he continued. Federal oversight is being brought in, and anyone who's part of the problem, myself included, will be held accountable. From the front row, a voice shouted, "Talk is cheap." Ricky didn't flinch. Then hold me to it. Leonard said nothing, but Tamara turned to him. You believe him? Leonard didn't look away from the front of the room. I believe the people who are still here. After the meeting, no one rushed out. People lingered in groups outside, some quiet, some emotional. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but something had cracked open. And once it's open, you can't go back. Monday morning, Leonard walked up the steps of City Hall with a slim folder in one hand and a half-empty coffee in the other. He was scheduled to meet the mayor in private, but when he walked in, 2 others were already waiting. Tamara Wells, now formally appointed as liaison to the Federal Review Team, and Grace Mendoza, seated with a folder of her own. Mayor Lanning looked up. Didn't expect this many visitors, he said with a tight smile. Leonard didn't smile back. He opened the file and placed it on the table. These are the preliminary findings. 5 confirmed violations of departmental policy, 3 cases of falsified reporting, 2 instances of body cam tampering, and 1 active attempt to obstruct a federal investigation. Lanning's expression stiffened. "Are you recommending prosecution?" Leonard paused. He glanced at Grace. She gave a slight nod. "We're recommending a full personnel audit," Grace said, "effective immediately, and the removal of Officer Curtis Dell." The mayor leaned back, his jaw tight. "You're asking me to fire one of our most senior officers?" "No," Leonard replied. "We're asking you to restore trust in a department that lost it a long time ago." Tamara leaned in. "Pick a side, Mayor. Protect the man who buried complaints and altered reports, or stand with the people who finally said enough." There was no press release that could fix this. No quiet suspension would satisfy what had been spoken in front of the town, on the record. After a long pause, Lanning nodded. "I'll issue the termination letter today." Leonard closed his folder and stood. "Any delay or interference, and we escalate to federal." Later that afternoon, Officer Curtis Dell was summoned into the sheriff's office. No explanations, no excuses. Just a printed letter with the mayor's signature, effective immediately. Dell stared at it, then at Ricky. "So that's it?" he asked. Ricky met his eyes. "You think it shouldn't be?" Dell's voice cracked. "I thought I was doing my job. I didn't know." "No," Ricky said. "You didn't care. That's what did you in." Dell left through the back exit. No one saw him again that day. Tamara watched from the hallway as the department shifted. Some officers were relieved, others weren't, but the tide was turning, quietly and finally. That evening, Leonard sat down with the mayor, the sheriff, and 2 DOJ officials. No fanfare, no speeches, just a hard conversation about new policies, real accountability, and the long road ahead. Mandatory body cam reviews, community reporting systems, independent oversight. No one clapped, no headlines, just the beginning of real work. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, Leonard made one last call. "Send me the next location," he said. There was a pause. "Already?" "Yeah," Leonard replied. "Already." But before he drove off, he sat still for a moment, not thinking about badges or titles, but about how easily people forget what respect actually looks like. It doesn't come from a uniform. It doesn't arrive with rank. It's earned when no one's watching. When you choose to do the right thing, even if no one thanks you for it. Sometimes the loudest truths are found in the quiet, the silence after a room stops laughing, the breath a town takes after pretending for too long, the pause before someone decides enough is enough. Back at his motel, Leonard sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, phone buzzing with follow-ups from DC. He muted the notifications, not out of defiance, just to breathe, because this wasn't about him. It was for the boy stopped on his way home from practice who still doesn't understand why, for the mother pulled over with her toddler crying in the back seat, for the elderly man cuffed in '89 who told no one. Not because he was okay with it, but because he thought no one would care. They didn't get to say, "I'm with the FBI." They just went home, or didn't. What Leonard had done wasn't about proving he had power. It was about using it, quietly, purposefully, and without ego. Respect doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need medals or marches. It comes from seeing people's humanity before judging their worth. They laughed when Leonard walked into that courtroom, because of how he looked, because of what they assumed. That moment didn't define him. It defined them. This wasn't just an investigation. It was a mirror, held up to a town, a department, and a system. You don't fix what's broken by pretending it still works. You fix it by listening, by acting, by refusing to let another name get buried in a file marked unfounded. So if you've ever been underestimated, remember this. Your silence isn't weakness. Your calm isn't surrender. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one carrying the most weight. And if you ever get the chance to speak up, for yourself or for someone who can't, remember, the badge doesn't make the person. The action does. Leonard Briggs wasn't a hero. He didn't need to be. He just did his job, the right way, fully, honestly. And in a world where too many forget what that looks like, maybe that's enough. If this story moved you, even a little. Don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. Ask questions. Hold your community to a higher standard. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't just a story. It's a reminder. And we need more of them.